All right, so I hope you enjoyed the breathing exercise. I'm a little bit more fast-paced. My name is Fadekemi, and I'm going to be taking you through the Decolonising Mental Health Research module that we studied at King's. So this is a new module being offered at King's College London. It has been developed by Dr. Riccardo Trumasi, pictured above. And so it's an optional module being offered across a variety of courses at the university, optional and non-credit bearing at present. Being studied by students from a variety of courses, but mainly with a more psychological background at the moment. So the aim of the module is to explore the effects of colonialism and power in history and how that is reflected in academia today, and other more broad societal discourses such as healthcare and employment. So to double down on our decolonized approach, we aimed for a collaborative approach with student discussion and student ideas, lived experiences being placed at the fore of teaching. So, the course. We covered quite a few different topics, and I've got a few of them up here for you now. So in week one, we began pretty broad, looking at our definitions of decolonisation. So all the students kind of contributed what we thought decolonisation would look like and how we would define it. And then in the following weeks, we covered a variety of areas, just exploring how we had seen or could see colonialism and power affecting various areas of society. So we considered biases and heuristics in employment. So for example, the information that can be revealed from just your name on an application. So, you could just put your name in an application for a job, and that would be indicative of your gender, your age, potentially your race as well. And how that could then affect your chances and opportunities. We considered neurodiversity. We considered cultural adaptations to psychiatry and psychology in a final seminar which was selected by a student. So we considered how shared cultural understanding can actually benefit people receiving therapies and how that can be implemented in modern psychological therapies. So in terms of what the course actually looked like on a day-to-day, we would meet once a week for a seminar, and we used the HighFlex system. So we had people on the ground in class, like me, and then we had other people joining us on Teams so that everyone could join remotely if they needed to. And that was what Rio and Gabrielle often did. So we would meet each week, and there'll be a pre-seminar task, something brief, read a chapter or an article, or maybe just look at some kind of stimulus to get us thinking about the topic. Did people do the task? Different question. But most of us tried our best. So we'd have that task, and then we would have a little overview of the task at the beginning of the seminar anyway. So if you didn't have time to cover the content beforehand, you'd usually get an overview of it, which was discussed early on in the class by the lecturer. And then we would also have a post-seminar task based on the discussions. So that might be writing an answer to a question, and sometimes we did some crazy stuff like generating images with AI tools, which was fun. And then during classes, we took the style of Socratic questioning, where the lecturer would ask the students the questions. So that was with the decolonized approach in mind. So we wanted it to be different from your typical lecture, where you've got someone standing at the front talking at you, which is ironic considering what I'm doing. But so we took a real departure from that. So we went for a Socratic question style, the lecturer asking the students about their experiences, their thoughts, their feelings, about a variety of topics that we covered each week. And so I felt that it was quite different from your traditional teaching where, there's always a concrete answer. I mean, it's what did X researcher find and what did Y theorists say? We had, more personal background being shared. We had people giving us their life stories, really. And that was really enriching for all of us. In terms of the classroom, the physical environment, We used a yarning circle. So essentially everyone sat in a circle and we would take it in turns to speak. So we would just essentially go around the circle and we tried our best to get everyone talking and everyone contributing. And we did have discussions around introducing a kind of pass so that if you didn't feel comfortable sharing, you could pass on the circle. If you didn't have anything in particular to contribute, you could just pass. But in general, people were really glad to participate, and having that kind of structure where we would sit in a circle and take turns really encouraged people to get thinking and contribute. And then finally, we had our assessment. So although it was a non-credit bearing module, we did have an assessment, but it was very different to the usual assessment that you'd see in any of your other modules. So it was a student-led assessment because students, us, we were formed essentially a very small committee, which was only the three of us. And we essentially set the assessment criteria, the theme of decolonisation in action. And we made it very open, allowed people to just produce something, whether that was a poster, a piece of writing, or some other form of presentation, just to describe what they thought decolonisation would look like in action. So this was led by students, of course, because we set the theme, but also led by students because the students were the ones who allocated the grades. So we graded our own submissions, and we also peer assessed. So this is all part of the more decolonised approach because we wanted to give students the ability to decide what was valuable knowledge. I imagine everyone's had the experience of thinking they smashed an essay, like they put some real fire down, and then, it's like a 40% on Turnitin. It's not ideal, but you feel that you've made some real discoveries during that process, and you feel that you've given knowledge, but it's not been valued. So in the decolonised approach, we decided to draw on some of what Gabrielle was talking about and placing the value of knowledge in the hands of the students. So we would mark our own assessments. And Gabby's going to tell you a lot more about that.
Thank you. So yeah, where does co-creation fit into this all? Do you mind being my clicker?
Absolutely.
Thank you. So, next slide, please. This is us. And we decided to create a symposium where we gather as students, as people within a university, and invite anyone who wanted to come. It was open to the public. And we said, what is knowledge? What is valuable knowledge? And how do we decolonize that? How do we put this into action? And within the confines of a tiny budget and an institution that is still struggling in some ways to confront its colonial history, we created a symposium. Next slide, please. So on the slide, it's some quotes from students. What does decolonization mean to you? It's quite moving, I think, to read these. And what we did is we gathered everyone's feedback and we displayed it at the symposium. So these were on posters, for example, and we encouraged reflection. We encouraged conversation. These are some of the prompts that Ricardo set for us. So, for example, imagine that a new HIV vaccine has been approved and proven safe. Create a bullet point outline for a new HIV vaccination campaign that sensitively and respectfully targets people of color. As a South African, for example, that is incredibly moving and powerful to come to this country to complete my master's and then see that a lecturer within the department is making moves for this type of thing to be discussed. Then we also have the assessments. So this is what we were assessing on, ourselves and our peers. We have, for example, Fadekemi's brilliant What's in a Name. I will link you to all of this in a second. Actions speak louder than words, freeing the understanding of self from the confines of science, Rio, also really good. And we even had people submitting podcasts. We were really encouraging creativity and breaking from the confines of what is traditionally academia. So one of the things I did was I set up this website. Not my best work, but it was a little activity to I guess to make knowledge free to all. It shouldn't be that only a student at King's or a staff member at King's or someone who's attending the DMU conference today has access to this knowledge. That's not fair, that's not just, and I don't believe in that. And so with the help from King's and a lovely little grant that we managed to secure, we put together this. And essentially, if you go to that link at the bottom, it will take you through the symposium, the assessments, the feedback, the thoughts, and what's going to happen next year. So in terms of assessment, we had some feedback from students. I liked the fact that it was like nothing else I had experienced. There was a sense of vulnerability that was really brought to the forefront of this. So for example, one student saying, I think there's a degree of vulnerability. It was, as someone who both created the assessment and then had to assess myself and my peers, it was incredibly vulnerable. It's a position that you don't want to find yourself in, at least from my point of view, because as a student for so long, you're taught to ask permission for things. And now we were given back that power and asked to reclaim it for ourselves. And that was incredibly intimidating and incredibly vulnerable. But what came out of it was so many more master's courses at the IOPPN at King's have now taken on this module. They saw that, yes, this is a little bit left-wing, it's a little bit not what we usually see, especially at an institution such as King's, and they've embraced it. Yes, it's been difficult. We've had to do a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, and a lot of fighting for what we believe in, but we got it. So this is a lovely QR code that hopefully works. This will take you to the website if it makes it a little bit easier for you. And thank you so much for attending today and sharing space with us and participating in our breathing exercise with Rio and Fadekemi and myself. Thank you.